Marge Ptaszek was searching for the purpose of her life and the truth that would tie everything together to make sense of what was taught and what was happening on our planet, the fire that was creating all the smoke. Through many experiences, she was finally led to the knowledge book that provided all the answers. She is now talking about this gift to humanity on Knowledge Book Radio, so all can be united in peace, love, and harmony. Please call 1-973 787-7035 or email mmjp99@gmail.com with questions. If you send your postal address to mmjp99@gmail.com, you will receive 3 chapters of the Knowledge Book as a gift. Now, here is your host, Marge Ptaszek.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marge Ptaszek, and you're listening to Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Ptaszek on Transformation Talk Radio. And today, as we've been doing for a while now, we will continue with our Omega conferences. And Omega is actually the 19th dimension, and it is at the 76th energy intensity level. Now, this dimension has not been open to humanity at all in any of the sacred texts. The Omega dimension is also called the Union of Central Suns, and it is a unification dimension. And all of us will eventually, when we follow the path of destiny designed for us, will wind up at the Omega dimension. Up till now, the highest dimension and the highest energy that was given to humanity is the Alpha dimension, which is at the 72nd intensity level, energy intensity level. Again, the Omega dimension is the 19th dimension, and it has been opened through the Knowledge Book. However, Omega talks are given once a month in a wide variety of topics. And while the talk is being given, the Omega dimension is opened when a magnetic field is formed. And then that magnetic field is, once the 19th dimension is open, when the Omega dimension is open, then those energies are coming into the entire planet. So even those individuals who do not have the Knowledge Book are able to receive these energies when these talks are given. So those individuals who actually attend an Omega talk in person are actually doing a great service to humanity, since everyone on the planet, even those who are not reading the Knowledge Book, are able to receive this positive Omega energies. So this month, the topic for October is bridges. And again, this is part of the Call to Friendship Association. It's part of the World Unification Program. And this is called the Omega Conference Series. So the topic for this month is bridges. A bridge is a structure built to span a physical obstacle, such as a river or a valley, without blocking the path underneath. It provides passage over the obstacle, allowing people or vehicles to cross. In a broader sense, a bridge can also symbolize something that joins or connects different people or things. The prototypical bridge is quite simple. You have 2 supports holding up a beam, a span. Yet the engineering problems that must be overcome, even in this simple form, are inherent in every bridge. The supports must be strong enough to hold the structure up, and the span between the supports must be strong enough to carry the loads. Now, all major bridges, are constructed using public funds, and therefore, bridge design that best serves the public interest must achieve 3 objectives. 1, maximizing efficiency. 2, minimizing costs. And 3, maintaining elegance, all the while ensuring safety. Now we'll go over the definition of what these mean. Efficiency is a scientific principle that prioritizes reducing materials while enhancing performance. Economy is a social principle that emphasizes lowering construction and maintenance costs while still preserving efficiency. Finally, elegance is a symbolic or visual principle that puts value on the personal expression of the designer without compromising either performance or economy. Now, there is little disagreement over what constitutes efficiency and economy, but the definition of elegance has always been controversial. Well, here we go. Different opinions, different viewpoints, and different ideas as to what elegance is presented or is achieved via this goal. Now, modern designers have written about elegance or aesthetics since the early 19th century, beginning with the Scottish engineer Thomas Telford. Bridges ultimately belong to the public, who are the final judges of their beauty, but in general, there are three positions taken by professionals. The first principle holds that the structure of a bridge is the province of the engineer, and that the beauty is fully achieved only by the addition of architecture. So, according to the engineer, as long as the structure is able to withstand the weight of itself and the transit of either the human or some kind of machinery going across it, then the structure is complete and the structure is okay. However, it's only when an architect gets involved or designer gets involved that that shape or that physical construct that was designed by the engineer can then be somehow modified to make sure that it is beautiful as well. The second idea, arguing from the standpoint of pure engineering, insists that bridges making the most efficient possible use of materials are, by definition, beautiful. Well, there are people who are looking at bridges or looking at anything that basically will say, yes, it does the job. Yes, it does. It has functionality. However, there is something missing. It is not really beautiful according to my viewpoint. The third case holds that architecture is not needed, but that the engineers must think about how to make the structure beautiful. So in this case, they want to eliminate the designer, eliminate the architect, and go by the aesthetics that are presented by the engineer who designed the bridge. And the last principle recognizes the fact that engineers have many possible choices of roughly equal efficiency and economy, and can therefore express their own aesthetic ideas without adding significantly to materials or cost. So making sure that the bridge is both efficient and economical, and the engineer is actually put in charge of making sure that it also meets the criteria of aesthetics, meets the criteria of what the city or that region considers beautiful, and therefore that is put into design by the engineer. So there are different kinds of bridges, as we may have noticed, as traveling everywhere. So there are 7 central bridge designs which have been adapted and enhanced over the years: the arch, the beam, the cable stayed, the cantilever, suspension, truss, and tied arch. While the truss bridge design is seen as the strongest, the suspension bridge design can stretch the furthest. The crux of any bridge design is a degree of flexibility, even though this may look dangerous in strong winds. The most expensive type of modern bridge is the suspension bridge, often costing more than $1 billion. So we'll go over. So here I have the arch bridge, the tied arch bridge, and this is where this arch is curves bottom to top to bottom, this bridge, this arch is from the bottom to the top to the bottom. And the bridge itself hangs from that arch. Well, in the first one, the arch supports the bridge from the bottom. And here the arch supports the bridge from the top. The cantilever bridge is one where part of the bridge is suspended, meaning you've got one weight on one side, let's say, of a plank, and someone else can stand on the other side of the plank and be supported by only one side of the plank. I mean, this is the principle of the of children's playground, where one person supports and raises the other person on the other side. That's the seesaw. Okay. Now we have the truss bridge. This is where you've got lots of triangles that are actually supporting the structure. We have the beam bridge where you've got lots of supports with one span going across. Suspension bridge when you've got something like, let's say, suspenders holding up your pants. So you've got two suspenders from which cables are suspended, hence the name. And then you've got all kinds of lines holding up the span. And the cable stayed bridge is basically you've got two supports and cables are coming directly from the top of the supports and holding the bridge up. Now, the way in which the vertical horizontal stresses are managed dictates the structure of the different bridges. In some cases, the deck area will be the load-bearing element, while in others, it will be the towers. So depending on the bridge, it's either the deck area or the span that bears the load. Well, in other cases, it's the spec that is the towers from which the cables are suspended that bears the load. Now, there are also designs that transmit tension through bridge cables, which allow a degree of flexibility for different terrains. Because you got to remember, depending where that bridge is being built, it depends on what is being built over, what span is crossed, that will in large part decide what kind of bridge is put in place. Now, one interesting factor when looking at different bridge designs is their longevity and the fact that they have been around for centuries. Not 10 months, not 20 years, not 50 years, but for centuries. And many of the world's greatest engineers have failed to add any significant improvements to the basic load-bearing designs of the past. So we're going to cover now the different types of bridges and how they work. So basically, these designs have passed the test of time, where they stayed in place and they have been functioning and working for a very long time. And these are the aqueducts built by the Romans. Now, beam bridges. Beam bridges are one of the simplest types of bridge. Basically, a perfect example is a basic log bridge, something that you can see when you're out on a walk. Basically, if you got a stream or a rivulet, you've got a support on one bank, support on the other bank, and you've got a log or some kind of plank that spans between those two supports. The deck area traditionally consists of wood plank or stone slabs, and this is often referred to as a clapper bridge. And these are supported either side by two beams running between abutments or piers. So you've got abutments or piers here, and then you've got the beam going across them being supported by them. Now, of course, the amount of load they can take varies depending on how strong these are. and how strong this part is, the decking. And very often, because if you're dealing with, let's say, a wide stream or a river, the decking itself may not be strong enough to withstand the traffic, and therefore you need to put in intermediate supports like here to make sure that the beam is able to support whatever weight is put on it. The area over which people or vehicles travel may be a simple decking positioned vertically across the underlying beams. This is often referred to as a simply supported structure. Not much complication, not much transference of tension, and load bearing is taken into consideration. I mean, it is taken into consideration, but the design is simple and straightforward. Because there is no transfer of stress, which you see in arch structures and other types of bridges. The truss bridge has been around for centuries and is a load-bearing structure which incorporates a truss in a highly efficient yet very simple design. You will notice an array of different variations of the simple truss bridge, but they all incorporate triangular designs. The role of these triangular elements is important because they effectively absorb tension and compression to create a stress structure able to accommodate dynamic loads. This mixture of tension and compression ensures the structure of the bridge is maintained and the decking area remains uncompromised even in relatively strong winds. So when you're creating a bridge design, you have to make sure that this bridge is able to withstand very high winds, because high winds could have a resonant effect on the bridge itself, and the bridge itself can start behaving like a wave, or and then the bridge becomes unstable. So you have to make sure that it's able to withstand a whole bunch of stresses, including the weather. These are examples of different stress, these triangular structures. Now here we have cantilever bridges. Now, when the first cantilever bridge was designed, it was seen as a major engineering breakthrough. This bridge works by using cantilevers, which may be simple beams or trusses. They are made from pre-stressed concrete or structural steel when used to accommodate traffic. This is a cantilever connected here, and this is no support at all here. Now, this is a cantilever as an extension of a supported beam. So you've got connection here, you have a supporting beam here, and this is the section that gets balanced out and held up by these two areas. When you consider that the horizontal beams making up the cantilever arm are only supported from one side, it begins to sound like a little dangerous. So when you're on a seesaw, you've got to make sure you're applying the pressure on one side so that the other person on the other side of the seesaw is able to still be supported in the air. However, the two cantilever arms are connected by what is known as the suspension span, and that's a centerpiece which has no direct support underneath. And the bridge load is supported through diagonal bracing with horizontal beams as opposed to typical vertical bracing. Extremely safe and very secure, the design of cantilever bridges is one which still lives on today. So you have support, support, cantilever, cantilever, and this must be the suspended span. Arch bridges. Now, there are many different types of arch bridges, but they all have central elements in common. So each arch bridge has abutments, which are used to support the curved arch structure under the bridge. The most common type of arch bridge is a viaduct, a long bridge made up of many arches, like we saw in that picture of the Roman arch viaduct. So the lateral pressure created by the arch span is transferred into the supporting abutments. So the arch itself stands in place, and this stress here is transferred laterally into the abutments on the two sides. So it is therefore essential that these parts of the bridge remain solid, intact, and well-founded. You will see many arch bridges with decorative brickwork, which is an integral part of the design. So this is not just, a facade of bricks. It is part of the actual structure of the bridge, able to support the arch. It is simple but effective, and the arch bridge can carry everything from pedestrians to heavy rail. Depends how it is built and constructed and the spans it takes. Now we're going to the tied arch bridges. The tied arch bridge is a fascinating design which incorporates an arch structure, which is usually metal, supported by vertical ties between the arch and the deck. So here we have the arch, and then there are vertical ties that go from the arch to the deck, and this is how it is supported. So actually, the bridge is hanging off these arches. The tips of the arch structure are connected by a bottom cord. This acts in a similar fashion to the string of a bow. So the downward pressure from the arch structure to the deck of the bridge is translated into tension by the vertical ties. Many people assume that the abutments ensure that the tied arch bridge and the arch structure stay in place. So here we have another example of a tied arch bridge, and it's got its own aesthetic beauty. However, it is the strengthened cord decking that connects the tips of each end of the arch together. The best example of this is a bowstring that absorbs pressure, keeping both sides of the bow intact in contact until it eventually flattens out. And here's another example of a different kind of tied arch bridge, and with a different coloring scheme with lights. So here the functionality has been really connected to the beauty of the structure. Almost looks like an arts piece. Now we're covering suspension bridges. The structure of a stereotypical suspension bridge may look simple, but the design is extremely effective. The deck of the suspension bridge is a load-bearing element of the structure. So, and this is held in place by vertical suspenders, which support the cables. So you've got the deck, which is a load-bearing structure, and this is the support from which the cables are hung. The suspension cables extend out beyond each side of the bridge and are anchored firmly into the ground. Depending on the bridge's size, multiple towers will be erected to support the suspension cables. Now I'm guessing this is the Golden Gate Bridge. Any load applied to the bridge is transformed into tension across the suspension cables that are the integral part of the structure. As there is some give in the suspension cables, these can translate into slight but measured bridge movement in difficult weather conditions. So I was crossing the George Washington Bridge at one point. We were stuck in traffic on the bridge, and we had not a snowstorm. We had a thunderstorm going on. So you could literally feel the entire bridge moving while you're on it. But the bridge is constructed in such a way that depending on the temperature that is on the cables, those cables are designed in such a way to make sure they can withstand the load on it, depending on pressure, depending on temperature, depending on wind. Now, these are cable stayed bridges. A cable stayed bridge is dependent upon towers or pylons that are a load-bearing element of the structure. Cables are connected from the pylons to the deck below. We have a pylon, and this is a pylon deck below. And either directly from the top of the tower to it or at different points of the column. When connected at different points of the column, this creates the fan-like pattern that many people associate with cable-stayed bridges. So here's your fan-like structure. This type of structure tends to be used for distances greater than those achieved with a cantilever bridge design, but less than a suspension bridge. So this design is best used for intermediate spans. One of the main issues with this type of bridge is that the central connection of the cables can place horizontal pressure on the deck. Therefore, the deck structure needs to be reinforced to withstand these ongoing pressures. Again, functionality combined with beauty. So what is the most expensive type of bridge to build? And why would that be considered economical? When examining the majority of high-cost bridges, a clear pattern emerges. They are predominantly suspension bridges. Therefore, the answer to the question of which type of bridge is the most expensive to construct is, of course, straightforward. It's a suspension bridge. So why do they build suspension bridges? Because it can carry and connect large distances to each other. But there are several reasons why they tend to be so expensive. They offer the stability or the ability to span huge distances up to 7,000 feet. So that's like a mile and a half, and a span which is out of reach of other bridge designs. So the other bridge designs can take you only so far in terms of distance covered between those physical structures that are being connected. The size of the towers, materials used, and the installation of what is known as the deck truss beneath the bridge deck all add to the significant costs. We have come a long way from the first suspension bridges, which were apparently made of twisted grass. The cost of today's largest suspension bridges will regularly exceed $1 billion. So when I think of the twisted grass, I think of, let's say, the old bridges in China, the old bridges in the jungle, where they use natural vines, natural materials to construct a bridge and connect the different parts they needed to connect, whether it's over a river or a stream or connecting one cliff to another. So what is the best type of bridge? From a strength perspective, a truss bridge offers the optimal strength to weight ratio. In simpler terms, it can support the highest weight relative to the weight of its construction materials. So the reason why we're able to have buildings that are higher than regular stone building is because we were able to reinforce the concrete, reinforce the steel, with reinforce the stone with steel. Because after a certain height, the stone cannot bear the weight that it is carrying. So the stone actually gets disintegrated, it gets crushed by the stone above it. So here we have a bridge that is able to withstand a tremendous amount of load and a tremendous lot of pressure relative to its own weight. Kind of like an ant being able to carry many times the weight of itself on its back. Now, which type of bridge is the strongest? Despite its longevity, having been in use for centuries, the truss bridge design is widely acclaimed as the most robust type of bridge. At first glance, the design appears deceptively simple. So what exactly contributes to its unparalleled strength, and why is it considered the strongest of all bridge types? So the key to the truss bridge's strength lies in its geometric configuration and the efficient distribution of forces. The design typically consists of a series of interconnected triangles that distribute weight and stress evenly across the structure. This geometric efficiency minimizes the impact of dynamic and static loads, ensuring stability and durability. I would think that the static load is the weight of the bridge itself, while the dynamic load is the weather, is the amount of traffic that's going across this bridge. Changeable load. Now, what is the most common type of bridge? The most common type of bridge is the beam bridge. You've got a simple abutment with a plank or a beam going across it. So what is the longest bridge in the world? That is the Danyang Kushan Grand Bridge in the Chinese province of Jiangsu. Here we're going to cover the most impressive bridges of the world, or in the world. The most impressive bridges in the world are marvels of engineering that blend functionality with aesthetic appeal. Their sweeping arches, intricate trusses, and graceful spans often create a sense of harmony with the surrounding landscape. Whether it's the iconic curves of the Golden Gate Bridge or the sleek lines of modern cable-stayed bridges, each design reflects a unique combination of strength and elegance. The interplay of light and shadow on their surfaces can transform these structures into dynamic works of art, capturing the imagination and inspiring awe. These bridges not only connect places, but also symbolize the ingenuity and creativity of human achievement. So it must be a joy to go across this bridge with the lighting and the way everything works. So it's as if you're traveling through a work of art. Kind of gives me an image of being inside a painting and traveling through that painting. Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco, California. So this was a 4-year project to span the Golden Gate Strait and to connect San Francisco to Marin County, culminated in what was the world's longest 4,200 feet and tallest suspension bridge when this Bay Area landmark opened in 1937. The Golden Gate would keep those records until 1960s. The Joseph Strauss Art Deco suspension bridge, this design is famous today in large part because of something a bit outside of the norm in the bridges of the world, its color. The Golden Gate was painted what is called an international orange, partly to match the warm coastal surroundings and to stand out against the horizon for boaters. So they made sure that the bridge could be seen, that the supports could be seen, so boats don't go bumping into them at night or maybe even during the day. But and even though it's called the Golden Gate Bridge, it's actually orange. But the Golden Gate, I suspect, is the name of the strait itself, not the name of the strait, but the fact that California is called the Golden State because of its coloring. Now we're covering Ponte Vecchio, which is in Florence, Italy. Now, centuries ago, it was common for shops and even houses to stand on the second story of a bridge. The most prominent example that still exists is probably Ponte Vecchio in Florence, Italy. Rebuilt after a flood in 1345, a 1565 upgrade added a second story to the stone segmental arch bridge spanning the Arno River. It was the second story that workshops and houses filled the extra space, stretching sometimes wider than the original bridge. So here we have the supporting arches, and above it we have, or inside it, we have the pedestrians crossing back and forth, while on the side of the bridge there are houses and shops. So it's the additional space that was created by this bridge allowed shops to be built and houses to be built. So the bridge created additional space for living and working. Now this is the Tower Bridge in London. It opened in 1894 on the east side of London after an 8-year project to construct a bridge across the Thames. It's one bridge in two styles, suspension and bascule. The 213-foot tall towers on either end of a 200-foot concentric rift span suspend the bridge to the shore on either side, while serving as a foundation for the bascule span that can raise and lower the ship traffic. So this is tall enough this actually moves back and forth to allow ships to go through, and the ship could be as tall as 213 feet to be able to get onto the bridge all at the same time. Okay. So that's a bascule bridge where it can move aside to allow something to go pass underneath. Now this is the Magdeburg Water Bridge in Germany. While most bridges cross rivers, this is a bridge that is kind of a river or a canal that is able to allow boats crossing from one side of the bridge to the other. Now this water bridge crosses the Elbe River, and it connects the Elbe-Havel Canal to the Middle Land Canal, sorry. And it becomes the longest navigable aqueduct in the world at more than 3,000 feet long. Now, before, the connection of the two canals required a 7.4-mile detour and boat lift into the river. So yeah, the boat could only go up to a certain point. They had to leave. The boat had to be towed to get to the next part where the canal was, and the boat was then dropped into that portion, and it was able to continue forward. So this bridge became a water bridge that the boats can go directly from one side to the other side without having to be taken off, towed, and dropping back into the water. This is the Sydney Harbour Bridge, Sydney, Australia. The coat hanger of steel that crosses the Sydney Harbour has a longer history than it appears. Opened in 1932, after 8 years of construction, the steel bridge features 6 million hand-driven rivets. 6 million hand-driven rivers. That's amazing. The extreme sun in Sydney required hinges that could handle the steel expanding and contracting in the extreme temperatures. At 160 feet wide, the bridge was the widest long-span bridge in the world until 2012 and crosses over 3,700 feet, with the steel arch being 440 feet above the water. So it's pretty long, 37, so that's almost a mile. This is the scale lane footbridge in Hull, England. Now here pedestrians can have some fun in Hull, England, with a swinging pedestrian bridge in what some call the shape of an apostrophe. I guess this area would be the top part of the apostrophe, and this is the bottom end of the apostrophe, and this is the bottom end that actually swings open to allow river traffic. This was designed by McDowell Benedetti and opened in 2013. The black steel bridge serves as a crossing of the River Hull, but opens to river traffic in an impressive swinging motion. Instead of going up and down like most bridges do, this one goes side to side. The Akashi Kyoko Bridge in Kobe, Japan, is the longest suspension bridge in the world, and it measures 12,800 feet across. So that's more than 2 miles. It opened in 1998 after 12 years of construction. It's amazingly long. The 3-span bridge crosses the Akashi Strait with 190,000 miles of wire cabling that stretches from 2 towers. The bridge design had to account for earthquakes, high winds, and harsh sea currents crashing against the towers. So you've got to, considering that Japan is a high earthquake zone, these towers have to support a great weight and be able to withstand wind, temperature, and earthquakes. But the idea of 190,000 miles of wire, just the thought of what needs to be done to produce that wire is amazing. The Millau Viaduct in Millau, France. It is 1,125 feet. It is the tallest bridge in the world, opened in 2004, and can at times soar above the clouds. At over 8,000 feet long, Millau Viaduct spans the Tarn River Valley with 7 pillars designed by Lord Norman Foster. To build a bridge in just 3 years, crews built the towers and then the roadway, which has slid into place atop the towers. So this is one example of a bridge over a land area, not of a river or an ocean or a strait. Well, not an ocean, a strait. Brooklyn Bridge, New York City. It may have taken 14 years to build, but when the Brooklyn Bridge opened in 1883 to connect Manhattan and Brooklyn, the single span of 1,595 feet, suspended by 4 cables, was a sight to behold, and it still is. Designed by John A. Roebling, and with the construction led by son Washington Roebling and his wife Emily, the project stands as an enduring symbol for bridge construction the world over. It may have been the 1884 P.T. Barnum's spectacle of leading a herd of 21 elephants across the bridge that originally cemented the bridge's popularity. But today, from the 15.5-inch diameter cables comprised of 5,434 parallel steel wires to the towers built of limestone, granite, and cement, everything about the Brooklyn Bridge is iconic. So it spans 7,710 feet. Going over the Brooklyn Bridge is an exciting time. And here we have some pictures of P.T. Barnum, which was a circus troupe crossing the Brooklyn Bridge. And here we have a lot of times when the bridge is, the picture of the bridge goes on here, it looks like the letter M with the wiring. Here we have the Charles Bridge, Prague, Czech Republic. And this one spans 2,037 feet, and it's an arch bridge. This is made of stone. It's old and it's impressive. The Charles Bridge in Prague crosses the Vltava River in all its Gothic glory. Was started in 1357 as a major construction project, ended in the early 1400s with a 2,037-foot stone arch bridge connecting Old Town to the Prague Castle area in the lesser quarter with 16 arches and an additional 30 decorative statues. So the residents went to town on this bridge. 16 arches, 2,000 feet, that's a half a mile, a little less than a half a mile. Now we have the Nanpu Bridge in Shanghai, China. The Nanpu Bridge features an impressive 7-lane, 2,500-foot cable stay component over the Huangpu River. But it's the 4 miles of bridge that don't cross the river that offer the most intrigue. A circular elevated approach stretches from land and wraps up, bringing vehicles to the height of the crossing in the midst of a heavy congestion downtown Shanghai. So I don't know if people have seen any movies that are shot in Shanghai. You will know that there's very, very heavy traffic. So this actually, the bridge is here, and to get onto the bridge, you have to travel 40. You have to get on it, travel 4 miles, and gradually get up to the level where the bridge is actually at. Most impressive bridges in the world. Confederation Bridge in Borden, Carleton, Canada. And 8 miles in length, the Confederation Bridge linking Prince Edward Island with mainland New Brunswick on Canada's east coast signifies the longest bridge over ice. Opened in 1997, the bridge doesn't win too many aesthetic contests, but the concrete box girder structure handles the wind, waves, and weather in the Abergweit Passage of the Northumberland Strait. With 62 piers, the Confederation Bridge generally raises 131 feet above the water. So as you know, water expands, grows bigger as it freezes. So these supports, these abutments, had to withstand ice forming and basically squeezing them from side to side. And this bridge itself is 8 miles long. The Gateshead Millennium Bridge, Gateshead, England, was opened in 2002, and this pedestrian bridge makes its mark by tilting. The curved structure spans the Tyne River and tilts to lower and raise to allow boat traffic past the bridge. This is deemed a winking eye bridge due to its shape, and the 413-foot-long span was lowered and placed in one piece by one of the world's largest floating cranes. The Techny Chain Bridge in Budapest, Hungary. English engineer William Tierney Clark gave Budapest something to boast about when the Chechny chain bridge opened across the Danube in 1849. The suspension bridge impressed with the cast iron and stone, one of the longest when it opened. The Seri Wawasan Bridge, Putrajaya, Malaysia. Asymmetrical in design, wows at the Seri Wawasan Bridge over Putrajaya Lake in Malaysia, with an inverted wide concrete steel pylon rising 315 feet high on one end. The 790-foot long bridge has as much aesthetic impressiveness as engineering intrigue. Opened in 2003, the pylon has the look of a sailing ship and lights up at night to add to the curved design. The Rialto Bridge in Venice, Italy. And this was the first bridge to span the Grand Canal of Venice. This 15th century structure by Antonio da Ponte defied the critics of the time and topped some steep competition. Even Michelangelo offered a design for the planned crossing. The peaked Venetian architecture allows for ship passage underneath. The design, which took 3 years to build, was created 24 feet high and 75 feet wide to allow space for shops along the sides. The Helix Bridge in Singapore. Inspired by the shape of DNA, the Helix Bridge offers Singapore pedestrians 918 feet of architectural intrigue and artistic expression. The bridge in Marina Bay uses multiple styles of steel to curve and sweep, opening at 5 points for viewing platforms. The steel tubes serve as the visual spectacle. If straightened and laid one end to end, they would stretch 7,280 feet. So this is amazing looking bridge. This is the Sloerhof Bridge in Leeuwarden, the Netherlands. It's called was nicknamed the Flying Drawer Bridge for the obvious reasons. This small bascule bridge swings sections of 49 times 49-foot deck 90 degrees up into the air to allow ships to pass. 2 arms swing from a pylon instead of traditional hinges for quicker movement. The Octavio Frias de Oliveira Bridge in Sao Paulo, Brazil. It isn't the size of the bridge in Sao Paulo, Brazil, that impresses, but rather the shape of the 453-foot tall bridge over the Pinheiros River, opened in 2008. The X-shaped tower of the cable-stayed bridge includes 2 bridge decks crossing within 250-foot wide tower. The addition of lights on the cables adds further intrigue to the design. So you've got an X-shaped tower by which the bridge is connected. And the summary. When you look at the different types of bridges and how they work, it opens a whole new area of design engineering. What many of us assume to be an aesthetic feature of a modern-day bridge is often an integral part of the design. These features often help control tension and stress in a variety of ways. It is also interesting to see that different bridge designs are suitable for different terrains. The fact that many of these basic designs go back centuries lost their viability, durability, and safety. And this is a different shape to a truss bridge. The engineering marvels of bridges and the metaphoric bridges we cross within ourselves share common principles of viability, durability, and beauty. They remind us that to achieve unity, whether it is connecting lands or harmonizing our inner selves, we must approach our journeys with the same care, resilience, and appreciation for the profound beauty that arises from true connection. And in the knowledge book, Classical 10, I quote, "You, the missionaries of peace, who will be witnesses to the establishment of a great system, will be taken care of personally. Humankind will be induced to go through certain important experiments so that the unification of the integrated consciousnesses can be made. Many bridges will be crossed until you attain this consciousness." In Classical 40, those who are able to establish their essence coordinates by the triangle of intellect, logic, awareness also gain the ability to do consciously the most perfect of everything. In sacred books, this is called the unity of the intellect with the essence heart, which is not something that can be attained easily at all. In order to be able to attain this, one has to cross numerous bridges, to leap through circles of fire, and to tread the soil of the world many times. By this means, one defies the power of the years. The very person who has attained this stage is for us a genuine human. So I will repeat these two again. And from Classical 10, you, the missionaries of peace, who will be witnesses to the establishment of a great system, will be taken care of personally. Humankind will be induced to go through certain important experiments so that the unification of the integrated consciousnesses can be made. Many bridges will be crossed until you attain this consciousness. And in Classical 40, those who are able to establish their essence coordinates by the triangle of intellect, logic, awareness also gain the ability to do consciously the most perfect of everything. In sacred books, this is called the unity of the intellect with the essence heart, which is not something that can be attained easily at all. In order to be able to attain this, one has to cross numerous bridges, to leap through circles of fire, and to tread the soil of the world many times. By this means, one defies the power of the years. The very person who has attained this stage is for us a genuine human. So as we travel over many bridges and feel the strength and durability of these structures, we realize that our life's evolution is similar. We will evolve and learn many lessons in our path through our physical world and our spiritual growth. These evolutionary steps on our path help us to attain infinite tolerance, infinite peace, infinite patience, and infinite love. We will then pass over the bridge to become a genuine human being. So we've been covering bridges, we've been covering physical bridges, but there are spiritual bridges that we need to cross as well. And bridges not only connect different parts of a physical structure of the terrain, but invisible bridges connect us to ourselves, to our inner essence. It connects us to other people. And there are different kinds of things that'll connect people. Music for one, dance for another. Concerts. When you look at concerts or be part of a concert, you're part of and unified with and connected to the bridge of that concert. So this is a means by which we can spiritually attune ourselves to that frequency of the music, be part of the music. And we're part of the music, then the negativity in our brains dissipates and it disappears because we are in step with the music. We become one with the music, and therefore no negativity can exist. So different kinds of connections. Painting is one, dance is another. All kinds of connections are between people. You can also consider pain as a connection, because once you have experienced pain in a certain situation and you see another person experiencing the same thing in the exact same situation or similar situation, you can then connect to that person and understand that person and unify with that person on that level. Okay, so this was Bridges for October 2024. And I need to give you connecting information. The Turkish website for the knowledge book is DKB, David Kite Boy, Mevlana.org.tr. Excuse me. The United States website is usa.theknowledgebook.net. And the Call to Friendship website is calltofriendship.org. My contact information for requests for to cover certain topics is mmjp99@gmail.com. That's mmjp99@gmail.com. Mary John Peter 99@gmail.com. Or you can also call or text me with any questions on any of the topics that we've covered, or with requests for additional topics to be covered. And my number is 973-787-7035. Again, 973-787-7035. Okay, thank you very much. We'll talk soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Ptaszek. Marge was led to the Knowledge Book, a gift to humanity at its time of transition to the golden age that provides the truth, energies, and knowledge. Now she shares information from and answers questions about the Knowledge Book with you the fourth Tuesday each month at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more information, visit usa.theknowledgebook.net and tune in next time for another amazing show on Knowledge Book Radio.